Well, very good morning. NBL Now up and running for your Thursday. After a couple of days of no games, it's felt a little bit strange. We've had games pretty much every day for the last 5 weeks. We've had a chance now to catch our breath, but only for a second because we did this little thing called the marketplace that's got everyone talking as well, which we'll get to very shortly. I'm Jack Heverin. Derek Rucker joins us as always on a Thursday. Morning to you, Derek.
Good morning, Jack, and it's been a quick week. The marketplace really took a good chunk of early in the week. That was a fantastic venture again, and Olgun and Hools are just great to work with.
Let's just get to that very, very shortly because we come bearing good news this morning for Tasmania fans, and Lord knows they could use a little bit of good news right now when it comes to injury. Anthony Drimmick, who was really unwell last Saturday, didn't play against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. He will return. And Majuk Deng, which could potentially be even better news for the JJs, is going to be a game-time decision tonight against Illawarra.
Well, naturally, having Anthony Drimmick back is a big one for the JackJumpers. But if they can get Majuk Deng back, and I think he will play, I don't think he's the type of guy who is going to miss this opportunity. And if they get both of those guys back, Jack, they're a threat again. We know how well they play down in Tasmania, and it doesn't take much for that group to kind of start feeling good about themselves and become very competitive. It's do or die for them. So whatever injuries or problems you have, you got to put them aside, get out there and hoop.
Yeah, it feels like absolute last chance saloon here for Tasmania. They've got Melbourne in Melbourne on Saturday night. So they have to win this to keep themselves alive for Saturday, don't they?
Exactly. And the problem is you're also relying on Adelaide to lose some games. And right now, I don't see Adelaide dropping many games. If you get lucky, maybe Adelaide lose 2 more, which means the JackJumpers essentially have to win out. But, you know, this is kind of the situation that they find themselves in. Some of it was their own doing. Some of it was misfortune. But nevertheless, they've got to capitalize tomorrow night against probably not one of the teams you want to try and play do-or-die basketball against, the Illawarra Hawks.
Yeah, and this from a Hawks point of view, Derek, it kind of feels like, I mean, they are on top. They haven't completely locked away top spot just yet. Sort of feels like the kind of game that they just have to deal with and bank a win and move on, doesn't it?
Since Christmas, they've been decent without being dominating. They've been good, but they've had some really disappointing losses. Obviously, the 2 losses to Cairns in that time frame kind of make you wonder, like, do they lose focus? Are they playing down at times? But then other times, they'll blow Melbourne United out. So, you know, I think Justin Tatum would just really want a strong effort with a lot of focus and doing the things that they do well going into this playoff campaign.
And I made that sound really easy, didn't I? You know, you just go to Tassie, you bank the win and you move on. It is not that easy to win at My State Bank Arena. So that game's coming up tonight. Yesterday, the NBL had its official launch for Pride Round, and it'll be a big feature of what's coming up over the course of the weekend. A couple of the teams already have done some things because they don't have home games as part of this round. But Issac Humphries, Derek, has been such a beacon and such a major part now of Pride Round. He's on the front cover of Men's Health magazine. There's a couple of other exciting things that Isac's going to be involved in that'll be announced shortly as well, a couple of podcasts. But he's just such a wonderful role model and such a wonderful ambassador for this round.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to do what Issac has done. And the thing that I really like about his whole move is that he has been able to stand strong in that space, but yet still be a really good basketball player. And it hasn't changed his identity as a player. In fact, it seems that it removed a burden. And, you know, he's one of the best bigs we have in Australia. And for him to be able to go out this and inspire others and lead others and motivate and kind of tell his own story the way he wants to tell it, that's pretty powerful, Jack.
Yeah, and for his team there at the Adelaide 36, I couldn't help but something you said about a minute and a half ago where you said, I don't see Adelaide losing too many more. Do we all of a sudden trust this 36ers team?
Oh, man. I do. I do because of Kendrick. I really trust him at the point guard position. I've gotten to see him play live now 2 or 3 times, and He knows what he's doing out there. He knows how to lead his teammates. He creates opportunities. And I think Montrez is really thriving in that shadow role where he is still an outsized figure with so much personality, so much performance. It seems like everyone has slotted into the roles that suit their personalities best. And with DJ Vasiljevic, all of a sudden now, he's like a striker. He comes in and waits for his moments and goes bang, bang, bang. And that has a significant impact on how that team performs. But what I like about them, Jack, is that they play with so much emotion. Now, that emotion, we've seen it go the wrong way several times this season. But I'd rather have that than a bunch of guys laying around like a limp paper towel.
Oh, there's no limp paper towels in Adelaide, Derek. They are whatever the opposite of a limp paper towel is. That is the Adelaide 36ers. They've got Brisbane on Friday at home, so it'll be another great atmosphere at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. I spent a lot of time yesterday doing round prep, Melbourne and Tasmania Saturday night, and Southeast Melbourne and Adelaide on Sunday is my lot for the weekend. But as I was starting to get things organised for Southeast Melbourne on Sunday, I kept getting drawn back to their game on Friday against Perth and how enormous that game is for the Phoenix, but also for Perth, how enormous that game is.
Perth need a home win. They have to have this victory just for their psyche and finding themselves, finding their winning identity again. And Bryce hasn't been great over the past 2 or 3 rounds. He was a really high volume shooter in that loss the other night against Cairns, but we know that he will find his way back individually. But collectively, can that team put it all together? Can John really get them a huge victory? Because, you know, right now, what are they sitting in? 5th place? I thought they had 2nd secured. I was convinced, Jack, that they were going to win 4 of those final 5 at home, and now that's not going to happen. And really, it's really worked against them. They're in a real battle now, and that's how precarious our league is. You can find yourself in a position where you think you're going to have home court advantage throughout most of the playoffs, and then all of a sudden you might be on the road in a play-in elimination game.
Yeah, and how important is second spot in your opinion in that case then? Because the difference between sitting back and it's like the play-in series is like Squid Games. Like it's whoever can survive and whoever can be there at the end versus being in second spot and just sitting back and watching everyone else take each other apart.
And every season is so damn different in personality. You know, I think that second spot is vital this year. Whereas last year was kind of like, I thought 2nd or 3rd, I was confident that whether you finished in one of those 2 positions, you were going to be all right. Well, Jack, we have no idea. There are 4 teams that are vying for that 2nd spot. And all of those teams, if they get to that 2nd spot, could go on and win a championship. And I think it's particularly important for Sydney to try and get that 2nd spot. I think it means more to the Sydney Kings than any other team in the competition.
Hard to disagree with that. Yeah, and there's a lot of advantages, as we say, for finishing 2nd. If I had to push you for a winner on Perth and Southeast Melbourne on Friday night, who you got? Easier question.
Perth. My tiebreakers on sporting events, especially with basketball, if I'm trying to predict, I go who has the best player? Bryce Cotton. Who is the home team? Perth. So I'm just using that basic tiebreaker system that I created some years ago, and I'm going to go with that, Jack.
That's the theory of Derek Rucker. You can Google that. I'm not sure what would come up, but that's the theory that you're going to get. I mentioned that a couple of days ago we jumped in the studio. We did a little thing called the marketplace. You're going to see it right across the free agency period. We took a look at all of the big names. We took a look at every team and what they've got to do in terms of those who are contracted, those who aren't, options, the whole thing. It's all live on nbl.com.au now, and of course on NBL's YouTube. I've been sort of following pretty closely the feedback and the review. Fans are ready for it. Fans want to talk more about this stuff, which is fantastic because we will. But the love in the air for Sam Froling, not just from Illawarra fans, Derek, but from Australian basketball fans. When we spoke about his situation with the Hawks, I think it's clear now that a lot of Australian basketball fans think that Sam Froling may very well be the best Australian big in the league.
It's the efficiency that he plays with, and he's so simple the way he goes about his business. There's no fuss, and I think he's kind of that quintessential Aussie bloke. I think that's where so many people in the basketball community and in the wider Australian sporting community can identify with Sam Froling. And when you look at him play, again, he just does his job. His job isn't very broad, but the several things that he is required to do, he does them all at a minimum of 8 out of 10 on a grading scale. He does it really well. And he goes out and gets you 15 and 6 or 7 on a regular basis. There are very few that do it. He does it in a low maintenance way. You don't see him griping and side-eyeing his teammates. He has all that stuff under control, and it looks like, even as a young professional, that all of his leadership attributes are coming to the fore. So that's my take on Sam Froling. He's having an outstanding season. I have him probably getting in one of the all NBL teams. But also, Jack, to go back to the marketplace and the construct of that show, full credit goes to you, yourself, and to everyone in the NBL media that is allowing us the latitude to go out and explore and discuss pertinent topics as it comes to free agent and the speculation, and allowing us to discuss hypothetical situations, rumors, murmurs, things that we think may happen. It creates an interest that hasn't existed in this league for the 35 years I've been involved in the NBL.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think there's a maturing there of clubs and fans, which is great. And just a little shout out to the Perth Wildcats. I mean, we spoke about Bryce Cotton off the top of that show. It's the biggest story. And it's hard to know which way it's going to go right now, but they were totally fine with things. They just put their head down and are busy trying to re-sign their superstar. So I think that speaks to the way that the teams are dealing with this. So well done to everyone involved.
And Jack, we're all behind the Perth Wildcats. Everybody here wants Bryce to stay.
Yes, all of us. I might go to Japan otherwise. If he goes to Japan, I might go with him. Why not? Karim Lopez at the other end of the scale. The talent that this young man has already as a teenager is frightening. What he's been able to do for the New Zealand Breakers, particularly in the second half of the season, it's now drawn interest. Jonathan Gavoni's written some really great things about him, as has Kevin O'Connor from Yahoo. This is all in the lead up to the 2026 draft. It's a really, really exciting 12 months ahead, I think, for us as NBL fans to know that Karim Lopez is coming back and he's only going to get better.
He's been really consistent as a young man. I think when the season started, he was 17. And for him to move across the world and figure out a way to live his life, adjust to a different type of lifestyle, a non-European lifestyle, and be able to play basketball at a really high level and break his way into that lineup and be one of the main pieces of that New Zealand Breakers team. And it shouldn't be lost upon us that he was doing this when the Breakers were winning games early in the season. When they were 7-3, he was having a prominent role in determining the outcomes of games. And even as things have started to fall apart a little bit there, he's maintained a nice level of play. And you look at his athleticism, it's outstanding. He's got long arms. I love the thing that I noticed about him when I first saw him play in Sydney, play well in Sydney, was the size of his hands, Jack.
Yeah.
That's very important, especially when you're playing that swingman role. It gives you great versatility with your hands, with the ball, when you have big mitts like he does. His jump shot's going to continue to improve. And I agree with Gavoni and Kevin O'Connor, and those guys know. Lopez I have him continuing to climb up. I mean, maybe he's a top 7 pick, even at the best.
Yeah, I think if we fast forward to this time next year, I agree with you. Absolutely. He's going to be right up in those conversations. So exciting there. Little one to finish off. Pete Hooley, our man, dropped an article on nbl.com.au yesterday afternoon about the high-scoring nature of this season, and not just from teams, but from individual performances. You know, there's been the Bryce games, obviously, the James Bateman 50-piece, Chris Golding, the list goes on. You've been around this league for a very, very long time now. You've watched the different evolutions of the league along the way and the style. Are we seeing the beginning of something here, do you think? Is this here to stay?
Well, it could be from the majority of the teams, those that have the talent and those that have guys that can put the ball in the bucket like some teams do around the league. Now, every team isn't blessed with a tremendous, all-time scorer like Bryce Cotton or a Chris Golding, but the general style of play across the globe is to play faster. And Australia has always been at the front edge, at the leading edge of pace in the way offenses attack. So as the rest of the world has kind of caught up, it's pushed our tempo up. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. And given the nature of the three-point line, again, Australia was ahead of the curve with respect to the usage of the three-point line. It's been that way for decades. And also, Jack, three-point shooting percentages are starting to climb up again. We had some teams last year that were really poor from the three-point line, most notably Brisbane. Now Brisbane are a significantly better three-point shooting team. It's lifted their scoring, and then just throughout the league, that raises everybody's scoring output. It's exciting. I know that. I don't know how defensive-minded coaches feel about it, but I know when we're at games, we see a lot of exciting shot creation and shot making, especially from the big-time guys.
Tasmania and Illawarra tonight at MyState Bank Arena. Tasmania simply must win this game to keep themselves in the playing calculation. And for the Hawks, they want to go one step closer to locking away top spot. Derek, early start for us. Have a great day today, and we'll catch you across the weekend.
All right, Jack.